at a serious moment in our nation's history. The MAGA Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security. They're a threat to our very democracy. They refuse to accept the will of the people. They embrace political violence. They don't believe in democracy. This is why, in this moment, those of you who love this country, Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving America than the MAGA Republicans are destroying America. The American principle that no one is above the law was reaffirmed. Donald Trump was given every opportunity to defend himself. It was a state case, not a federal case, and it was heard by a jury of 12 citizens, 12 Americans, 12 people like you, like millions of Americans who served on juries. This jury is chosen the same way every jury in America is chosen. It was a process that Donald Trump's attorney was part of. The jury heard 5 weeks of evidence, 5 weeks. And after careful deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. They found Donald Trump guilty on all 34 felony counts. Now he'll be given the opportunity, as he should, to appeal that decision just like everyone else has that opportunity. That's how the American system of justice works. And it's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict. Our justice system has endured for nearly 250 years. And it literally is the cornerstone of America, our justice system. The justice system should be respected, and we should never allow anyone to tear it down. It's as simple as that. That's America. That's who we are. And that's who we'll always be, God willing.
I mean, these are Americans who are pissed off. They're coming out of the woodwork, and they want to support a guy that they just believe is getting bamboozled by a system. And we saw it with impeachment 1. We saw it with impeachment 2. We see it where they weaponize every liberal DA and AG across the country with one intent: to take him down, to slander him, to ruin his reputation, to try and divide his family, to try and bankrupt him, to throw him in jail, to do whatever the hell they can do. And America sees through it. They know exactly what's going on.
Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir? Do you think the conviction will have an impact on the campaign? We'd love to hear your thoughts, sir.
Should he be on the ballot, sir?
Since it's clear that you're not corrupt and you got elected, why should people think that the system produces corrupt results when there you are?
Well, I'm not sure you should assume I'm not corrupt, but thank you for that, though.
I would just like to know what you can say to reassure us that this election will not be rigged or stolen.
Well,
Wait for it.
so I want to be honest. It's not as if it's just Republicans who have monkeyed around with elections in the past. Sometimes Democrats have too. You know, whenever people are in power, they have this tendency to try to, tilt things in their direction. Say what you will about Mr. Trump. He certainly would bring some change to the White House. Let's see what we've got up there.
That does this, so we have plenty of opportunity to make sure we get everyone in the world to play our part, the largest part in the world, of getting everyone vaccinated.
Now, I would like for anybody here in the press, anybody at home, anybody in MSNBC or the media afterwards, to clearly state what exactly is the crime that Donald Trump committed. Oh, wait. We have not heard a good answer to that question. It has been vague until today. You heard Michael Cohen's testimony, after which I would say it is less clear than ever what that crime actually was. They'll say falsifying business records. Well, let's look at who did we learn falsified business records today? hour, 2 hours, felt like it could have been 7 hours, of Michael Cohen talking about how he falsified business records. Okay, so you have a guy who has been a perjurer in the past that is now saying he falsified business records. What is the crime that Donald Trump committed? Now, it appears to be what they might allege is some sort of bookkeeping error or whatever. The real bookkeeping that we need accounting of is Judge Merchan's own family member collecting millions of dollars as a Democratic operative, using the existence of this trial as a fundraising ploy for Democrats. This is unconscionable. Imagine if the same shoe fit the other foot. Imagine if it was Joe Biden that was on trial. You had a Republican judge whose son was collecting millions of dollars as a Republican operative. What would you all be saying? This would not be justice. This is injustice at its worst. So let's go even a layer deeper, right? Because let's go even a layer deeper, actually. The alleged crime here is supposedly, they try to point to this every day, that he does not actually use campaign funds, that he used personal funds. Well, let's get this straight. Suppose Donald Trump had used campaign funds to make a personal expense. They'd be going after him for that. So if they're going to get him going or they're going to get him coming, that is the best proof that this is a politicized sham. Let's go through it piece by piece. If you tell somebody to go buy you a suit and you want to look good on television because that'll affect the voters, the way voters vote for you, you know what? They prosecute politicians if they use campaign funds to buy a suit. Campaign funds to get a haircut because you want to look good to the voters, they will actually prosecute you for using campaign funds for a personal expense. Yet the entire legal theory of this case, the whole case that Alvin Bragg has brought, depends on one premise for them to charge this as a felony, is that Donald Trump somehow should have used campaign funds to make an allegedly personal payment. Yet if he had done that, their case against him would be even stronger. This is garbage. That is the best proof that you have that if they're going to get him going or get him coming, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is a sham. This is not the United States of America. This is some third-rate banana republic. If this were happening in another country, we would be laughing at them as a sham democracy. I am ashamed as an American citizen to sit here in a courtroom watching the former leader of the free world, and let's be honest, likely next leader of the free world, sitting with the indignity in this dingy third-rate courtroom with fourth-rate prosecutors and a fifth-rate lawyer on the stand as a witness, who actually is violating attorney-client privilege left and right. Nobody's even talking about that. So this is a shame. Shame on this period in our country's history, but we will get through it and be stronger because you know who ultimately actually cast the vote on this case? It's not just the jurors in that jury box. It's every one of you at home. It's every American who votes this November to say no to the weaponization of justice. And if you're at home, you may say, you know what, I don't agree with everything Donald Trump's ever said. You know what, I may not agree with some of his policies even though they were great policies for 4 years. But you do agree, whether you are Democrat or Republican or black or white or gay or straight or man or woman, that our justice system should be blind to politics. That regardless of whether your last name is Biden or Trump, regardless of whether you've been a politician or not, you get a fair shake in our own legal system. And when you have a prosecutor who campaigned on the pledge of going after Trump and then keeps his campaign pledge, when you have a judge whose kids are collecting money from Democratic operatives by fundraising off the very trial that judge is presiding over, and then telling the U.S. president that he's subject to a gag order, that he can't talk about it, that is not justice. That is a bastardization of what this country was founded on. And I'm here, and all of us are here as friends of Donald Trump, supporting him in our personal capacity, sharing our opinions. That's why we're here today. But I hope every American at home who isn't able to be in that courtroom is able to see what's actually happening there. And when you do, we will have a landslide of historic proportion this November if every American understands the injustice that's playing out in that courtroom today.
Donald John Trump.
Don't tell me.
Is a convicted felon.
I'll be president of the United States, not vice president of the United States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million undocumented people.
Hard for me to go out and make the case for my president that I had strong disagreement with. That'd be a hard thing for me to do. And I don't criticize those who do, because you must be a team. So I would not recommend that anyone pick me for vice president.
We choose truth over facts.
I would not recommend that anyone pick me for vice president.
And we've got free speech in this country.
We do have breaking news tonight, a deeply divided moment playing out in American history as we come on the air. President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1, abuse of power.
All Americans deserve the freedom to be safe, and America is safer today than when I took office.
So that's my first. In your judgment, is America safer today than it was 3 years ago, Vivek Ramaswamy?
Absolutely not. That's a lie, Larry. And to the contrary, we have 10 million illegals who have entered this country and rising under Biden's regime. That's what I'll call it. That's the largest scale violation of the rule of law that I think we've seen in modern American history. Many of those criminals, the people whose first act of entering this country, if it breaks the law, it actually predicts that they're going to continue to break the law while they're already here. Combine that with what we're seeing in cities across this country, from Chicago to New York, a wave of crime that actually even requires the New York governor to now talk about bringing out the National Guard. Something if President Trump said it, they would dismiss as dictatorial, yet now they recognize as potentially actually necessary, reveals that the State of the Union we saw last night was Orwellian in nature. Say one thing when in fact the opposite is true. And I do think the American people now are attuned to see through that smoke screen. And I think many of them, especially in the cities, Larry, will do just that.
I mean, I would have thought if he was serious about crime, first of all, he has plenty of executive authority. You and I talked about that. He's got 212F and 287G. Both laws stop people from coming in illegally, work with the local police to deport criminals. Okay, he could have used that. Those are laws on the books for years. He didn't. Point number one. Point number two, he's not going to oppose any sanctuary cities. Point number three, he has made no effort to defend cops. This is another thing. Where's the blue line? In all these cities, New York and Chicago and San Francisco and elsewhere, Biden, you know, he never seems to want to defend the blue line, the police, or the firefighters. And his supporters are often on the wrong side of the blue line. I think that goes part and parcel with the fact that we are not safer than we were 3 years ago.
Well, it does. I think 212F and 287G are excellent points, Larry, because these are tools that the chief executive of the country, the U.S. president, already has. Biden tried to make the case last night that they need new laws. We don't need new laws. We need a new president who enforces the laws that are already on the books. 212F basically says the U.S. president has broad authority to set the criteria that other countries have to meet in order to send migrants to this country. The Trump administration used it to say that certain other countries need to have 12 criteria, data points they need to provide. And if they can't provide those data points, then people can't come from those countries. A reasonable step to take. 287G effectively says that the 6,000 ICE agents can use about 1 million local law enforcement to serve their own warrants. These are tools that don't require Congress to act. It requires the president to execute the laws of the United States, which, as a reminder, as if we need it, that's exactly what Article 2 of the Constitution says the U.S. president not only has the authority to do, but has the responsibility to do, to execute the already existent laws of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. It's a very exciting day around here. We'll have reaction and analysis.
This magnificent planet. This conference is one of the most important meetings in history. You.
Choose my words. There's some movement. There's been a response from there's been a response from the opposition, but yes, I'm sorry, from Hamas.
The second one, if there is a question through society of United States about military and about something else, okay, let's co-produce it. It will be win-win. The third one, if you can't give us some financial support, okay, please, give us a credit and we will give you back money after the war. And the fourth, we can buy some ammunition. We will buy. We will defend our jobs. We will have taxes and we will buy. We will buy from American companies. Just allow us. And that's it.
Why are you against supporting Ukraine? Because it does not advance American interests, and as the U.S. president, I'm not running for any other role other than looking after the interests of Americans. However, my plan to end the Ukraine war will actually be probably better for Ukraine. At least it comes out with its sovereignty intact. How so? Which is not the plan they're on right now. You mark my words, the way this war ends right now, without the U.S. actually stepping in and saying we're not going to fund any more of it, is going to be some post-Zelensky warlord takes over with a couple $100 billion of American military equipment, just like what happened after the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and you see how far that got.
President Biden's national address tonight was designed to convince Congress the U.S. and the world will be safer if we help fund not just Israel, but Ukraine too. A prime minister and a president.
American leadership is what holds the world together.
Both rallying their troops. President Biden figuratively in a rare primetime address from the Oval Office Thursday night.
The risk of conflict and chaos could spread in other parts of the world.
The president defending his expected Friday request to Congress, an unprecedented estimated $105 billion in security funding for Israel and Ukraine. $60 billion is said to be slated for the fight against Russia.
The Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron has said the UK will give at least £3 billion worth of aid to Ukraine every year for as long as necessary. He made the comments in Kyiv while meeting President Zelensky.
We also have a history of kind of moving in and out of Pakistan. I mean, let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia. And we went to work. And it was President Reagan in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen, and let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated, they lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, wasn't a bad investment to end the Soviet Union, but let's be careful what we sow because we will harvest.
I think that some of our friends started in a very different position. So in France and in Germany, they had this tradition of the Normandy process and the Minsk agreements, and they were used to engaging with Russia, trying to persuade Russia and Ukraine to negotiate. So in the first meeting, I said Putin must fail, and everybody, it took a while to get people to agree to this because everybody was going, well, fail? That, you know, that's a big thing to ask for Putin. Everybody's a bit, in my view, a bit superstitious about Putin. They're wrong, but they said it was too much to ask for Putin to fail. We needed to find different language, and I said no, Putin must fail, and Ukraine must succeed, and that means at the least driving Putin out of all the areas he has taken, at the least, since February the 24th, began to think about some negotiation or some peace plan or some deal, some land for peace deal, the idea crumbled immediately in the discussion, because you can't negotiate with Putin because he's so patently untrustworthy. And so that argument never worked. And so everybody was always forced back to the only logical conclusion that we had to back Ukraine with everything we could until Ukraine succeeds in getting Putin's invaders out of their country.
The Biden administration dispatched Boris Johnson, the briefly prime minister of the UK, to stop it and to say to Zelensky, who I feel sorry for, by the way, because he's caught between these forces that are bigger than he is, to say, no, you cannot come to any terms with Russia. And the result of that has not been a Ukrainian victory. It's just been more dead Ukrainians and a lot of profit for the West. It's a moral crime, in my opinion. And I tried to ask Boris Johnson about it, because why wouldn't I? After he denounced me as a tool of the Kremlin or something. And he demanded $1 million to talk to me.
Wow.
And this just happened last week. And by the way, in writing too, I'm not making this. I'm not
Just
making
for
this
the
up.
record, you demanded $1 million from me to talk to me today.
I did, and you paid. No, I'm of course kidding. But and I said to his guy, I said, I just interviewed Putin, who was widely recognized as a bad guy, and he did it for free. He didn't demand $1 million. He wasn't in this for profit. Like, are you telling me that Boris Johnson is sleazier than Vladimir Putin? And of course, that is the message. And so I guess these are really, it's not just about Boris Johnson being a sad, rapacious fraud, which he is, obviously. But
Macron, do you know Macron? He's a very nice guy. Macron, and really a very nice guy. I said, Emmanuel, how are you? He said, fine. I said, I heard you're going to charge American companies 25% to do things in Mexico. Who else are you doing? Well, nobody yet, but we will do other. I said, no, but you're not going to do it, Emmanuel. You're not going to, no, Donald, it has already passed. I said, well, you better unpass it, because if you don't unpass it, you're going to pay a 100% tariff on all wines and champagnes that are shipped into the United States starting tonight. No, you cannot do that, Donald. You cannot do that. I said, I can do that. In fact, I'm just signing it right now. No. Okay, Donald, look, okay, I'm not going to, we're not going to do it. That was the end of it, Mike. That was the end of it. It was so easy. You think Joe Biden can tell you about it? He doesn't have a clue. The guy, he cannot, I'm telling you, I saw the other night, he couldn't find the stairs off the stage. He's looking. You ever notice he looks like this? He's finished with the speech, which usually lasts no longer than about 3 minutes, because, the medical stuff wears off after 3 minutes. So he's looking around.
Now, President Biden has garnered over 67,000 TikTok followers in the first 24 hours since his campaign decided to join the app. His arrival comes despite the data security issues surrounding the Chinese-owned company. The US has stayed away from TikTok because of privacy and national security concerns related to the app's owner, Chinese company ByteDance. President Biden was answering questions on the Super Bowl in a brief video. Let's take a look.
Chiefs or Niners?
Two great quarterbacks, hard to decide. But if I didn't say I was for the Eagles, then I'd be sleeping alone. My wife.
Should TikTok be banned in the U.S., President Biden may sign a new bill that could do just that. The House Energy and Commerce Committee has unanimously passed a bill forcing TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, to sell its ownership of the app or face a U.S. ban. The legislation aims to address concerns about TikTok potentially sharing user data with China. TikTok denies doing so. The U.S. government hasn't provided evidence of this happening. The bill still has a long way to go before it reaches President Biden's desk. It still has to make it through the House and Senate. By the way, the Biden campaign does now have a TikTok account, even though he bans federal employees from having it on their phones.
We were leaving Afghanistan with dignity and strength. Biden left in shame and defeat. A defeat like this country has never suffered before.
How you doing, Mr. President?
Hi, Kelly.
One of the many great things you did in your first term was put America first. One of the many, many great things you did. That isn't the case in the last few years, which is evident with the unnecessary billions of dollars in foreign aid we have given specifically to Ukraine. So what is going to be the solution to fix all of that spending?
Thank you very much, Kelly. Appreciate it. I like that question. I like this guy. I can tell.
30 years ago, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
I said arrested. I meant I was not able to move. Cops, Afrikaners would not let me go with them, made me stay where I was. I guess I wasn't arrested, I was stopped. When I was about the age of the guy standing over there, I got involved in the civil rights movement.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I did not march with a 12-point program. I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
More than once, advisors had gently reminded Mr. Biden of the problem with this formulation. He had not actually marched during the civil rights movement, and more than once, Mr. Biden assured them that he understood, kept telling the story anyway.
And so I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home politically. I used to drive a tractor trailer.
Oh, awesome.
And so I know a little bit about driving big trucks.
No, that's great.
But anyway, I only did it for part of a summer. I got my education for real in the black church. And that's not hyperbole, it's a fact.
He forgot to bring watermelon and grape drink. Now, if he had brought watermelon and grape drink, that would have completed the trifecta. But he felt like we only like chicken, and we need these things in conjunction with each other. And I'm just sad that he decided to carry it a little farther and say, let me get a hamburger so I can let you know I'm different than you. I don't know if you heard that part. He decided to have a hamburger. He didn't want none of that Negro food.
He did not want the chicken, that's for sure.
Black people are going to save America from Joe Biden. You speak to black people as if you literally own them. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. What type of fucking... It's amazing. Yeah. It's the level of entitlement and audacity. Mind you, you're the same guy that crafted the criminal legislation, to send many of these black men to jail in the first place. Black people are going to have to save America from Joe Biden. Then black people are going to have to become libertarians and save America from America.
We mourn the tragic loss of life in Israel and Gaza. The Prime Minister reminded us last week of the need to fight extremism and heal divisions. So I start today by remembering the Muslims who died in 2 world wars in the service of freedom and democracy. We need a memorial to honour them, so following representations from the Right Honourable Member for Bromsgrove and others, I've decided to allocate £1 million towards the cost of building one. Whatever your faith or colour or class, this country will never forget the sacrifices made for our future.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent.
Even call centers, which rushed overseas in the hundreds of thousands. How many times you get the call? I'd like to talk to you about your credit card. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. They're going to put you all back in chains.
I think the two-party system, although my Democratic colleagues don't like me saying this, I think the two-party system is good for the South and good for the Negro, good for the black in the South. Other than the fact that they still call me boy, I think they've changed their mind a lot.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
30 seconds or less. What kind of a chance would a northeastern liberal like Joe Biden stand in the South if you were running in Democratic primaries against Southerners like Mark Warner and John Edwards?
Better than anybody else. And you don't know my state. My state was a slave state. My state is a border state. My state is the 8th largest black population in the country. My state is anything from a northeast liberal.
Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made.
Not the first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storyboard.